make the first rendition of Fanna-Fi-Allah, which was about 10 people. Kind of like Ilahi, it was big in the early days.
Ji.
And we decided we would practice 3 times a week.
It's just about bringing different cultures together. It doesn't resonate with one culture.
In a way, Amir Khusro is like bringing bhajan and classical music and music from Persia and lyrics from Persia and whatever, and fusing all that together. I mean, originally that's what it was like how to blend all these worlds together.
Yeah. When we do those performances in the theaters in London, I always think of the Live in Paris box set of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, because that's like the gold standard of excellent Qawwali performed in like theater stage format. So
and you like listen to Allahu over and over and over and try to transcribe it. Just
and
play
rewind
it.
the little what do you call those, Walkmans?
Yeah. Just to like break down the wordage, and I'm sure it was all slandered out, but that was the first time I remember you actually trying to recreate a Qawwali.
I heard all these stories, and all that information is really easily accessible because they always resided in Western countries. And there was a lot of interviews and a lot of even literature about their experiences, but there's very little about Dildar Sahib. There's some, half a dozen interviews where he's spoken in Punjabi, and it was a great experience to be able to just ask him on those long road trips. Most amazing experience of my life for sure.
Qawwali always there was a soft spot for Qawwali always. We grew up listening to Qawwali all the time. It would be like our dessert. The mains would be Ustad Tariq Khan Sahib, and then for dessert we'll listen to Qawwali. Something a bit.
And he's like, check this out. And he pulls out this cassette, and he's like, 90-minute cassette, the 90-minute ones. And he puts it in. Hakali also didn't finish. It was like the never-ending Hakali.
Wow.
And we would listen to it like one time, and then we listen to it another time. The song doesn't finish, and then he puts it on from the start again. And then at the end, he gives us the cassette.
Whoa.
We still have that cassette.
Wow.
And that's
every night, midnight or 1 a.m., like, come wake me up, be like, Andre, one sandwich, please. Please.
What about
and then one picture, like, you wanted to watch a movie. Another time, we only had like one
DDLJ.
DVD of DDLJ. And every night for like 3-4 months, pretty much, I would have to watch DDLJ with Dildar because I just wanted to hear it.
Where Bakshit Salama did something insane, and his harmonium player started bawling to the point where he couldn't even play anymore. Wow. He got up and nazared him, and then he was like so emotional that he couldn't even play for like the rest.
It's like you feel like God is walking to your house if you're a Qawwali lover, because that's the dhamma that you hear, the tabla, and you're like, wow, he's here. This is it. This is the full stop to the story, and this is very ends for somebody like me.
Because the one of the bold parts was like so on point, and we're all just like, oh. And then he's like literally like uncontrollably crying.
He got up, Nazar down,
and then he gets up and is crying and throwing Nazar on his bigger brother, and which is still going, and it is still playing. And he's like crying into the money, and then other people are throwing money on top of them. I was like, what is this, man? That's so cool.
All right. Well, my journey into Qawwali actually started with my father's cassette tapes. He had, say, about 100 cassette tapes of Khan Sahib and various other Qawwals, notably the Sabri brothers, very popular in Fiji. And I think the music was very similar to the music that's performed in Fiji. So I think we could relate to it on a level that we couldn't, even with Indian classical music, which I went on to learn. And I think in terms of learning Qawwali, I think that was the biggest journey for me because when I started, there was no Qawwali teachers. We couldn't even get concerts in New Zealand, let alone get a teacher. So I was very fortunate to meet Tahir Bhai about 10 years ago, and that really opened up, some opportunities for me. I played tabla with him in our Australian ensemble for a number of years. And been very fortunate the last year to come on as a second harmonium player and a vocalist.
What was your experience like? Because we all have our own experiences, like when you first heard the cassette, or there was a particular song or a particular album, like what was the experience like of first like getting into it?
For sure. I mean, I think the first time I heard it, I must have been, a toddler. I was just overwhelmed by the rhythm. I think I gravitated towards, the Larsab's tabla playing in particular. And not being able to understand the language, I think may have helped even more, because I was just able to lose myself in the music, the melodies, and then the rhythms. But I think another part of it for me was having grown up like a lot of Indian kids listening to like film music, where it's this very defined structure and you follow a certain rag. I think something that really got me really early was the exploration of different rags and finding ways to reintroduce, the main theme, which, later on in life when I went to play jazz music, I saw a lot of correlation there. So yeah, it's just been a part of my life since I can remember, and I'm very fortunate that now my world kind of revolves around it.
It's amazing.
How do you relate to like the spiritual aspect of Qawwali? Because it's obviously like somewhat of a religious music in a way.
Sure.
Because you're not Muslim or you're more brought up that way. So like how did that tie into you? I'm curious also for Kash and Rohit as well. Actually. I mean, for everybody really.
Yeah.
I always thought personally like music like transcends. Like I never thought about it as like a reason for divide. If anything, I always thought about it as, growing up as a Hindu, we performed bhajans and kirtans, and that was the music that I was surrounded by growing up. But I never really thought of this art form as Muslim exclusive music or anything like that. And I always was amazed by how, music has brought all of the religions together. And like if you listen to any concept album, I mean, I think most people would say that, they don't consider the fact that he's a Muslim artist. I think he's just an amazing artist that, everyone loves. And, I think that transcends all religion.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree. And I think adding on, music is just an expression, right, of your emotions. And music has one language but has so many different styles. Like even for me, so I come from a very heavy Kirtan Sikh family. My great-grandfather, by Dharam Singh Zakhmi, was like the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan of the Kirtan world. So he introduced classical Kirtan, and then it all sort of began from there. And yeah, it's exactly what Chetan Bhai said. It's just about bringing different cultures together. It doesn't resonate with one culture. There's Qawwali in India. There's Qawwali in Korea now. There's Qawwali all over the world, and I think it's spreading fast. But yeah, absolutely agree. Same thing.
What about you, Rohit? How did you get into this whole thing?
Yeah, so basically, the way I got into Qawwali was because I'm born in Italy, and the first time I ever heard Qawwali was my uncle's car, and we were going somewhere, and he was playing Starting with the concept, and I thought to myself, oh, this is a little bit different. It's not the normal, bhajan or a Bollywood song or Kirtan, but I didn't put weight on to think, oh, let me ask who is the singer. And so I was still a kid. I think I was between 5 and 10. And then when I moved to the UK in 2014, there's a really strong passion for Qawwali in the UK. And I started going to the mandir, and I basically started doing bhajans, singing bhajans, and I met a few other singers, and that's when they asked me, do you want to come with us? And I said, why not? Because I really have a really strong passion for bhajans and just singing, the things that you can express and the feelings, and but yeah, and then slowly one day, this is when I moved to the UK, and then I got a phone call saying would you want to come as a chorus singer with our group? And I said, yeah, why not? I'll give it a go. And that's when I realized that I had the beat, and I could clap on the beat for Qawwali, and that's the beginning of my journey. And this was in after 2006, and yeah, that's when I started. And being in the UK and not really going much to India or Pakistan. I mean, my parents originally are from India. I never actually pursued the path of having a start, but I, as much as I would love to, I haven't approached a start or actually learned the theory of Qawwali, and but I think somewhere, because my grandfather, Pagram, he used to play dholki, and my uncle used to play chimta. So I think there is somewhere in the bloodline that we relate to music. And my mother used to perform us in when she was a child. She used to perform in schools, and but yeah, nobody else really does any. Is a singer in my family, and yeah, this is my journey of going to Qawwali.
Well, that rhythm in your family, yeah?
Yeah, can say.
You ever pick up the chimta yourself?
I have. I mean, now I've come to a stage where even when I go to dargahs in India, for example, they're very respectful on Nakodar or Madali Sharif, because after my marriage, I did go back to India. I didn't go for 12 years. And then I have, when I go on a Thursday, I know there's a Qawwali group there, and I would very kindly ask them if I can join them, and I would love to, just try the vibe, and just be able to offer my prayers or my devotion, and just emerge in the environment. Yeah. And with this kirtan or bhajans, and just trying to play my part of what I can do, whether it's singing, chimta, or even the dholak, by just like one beat, the simple way that I know, I would do that. And yeah.
We have a dholak here somewhere.
Yeah, multiple. Yeah. A stack of them.
Solo performance coming up soon. Episode 2.
I was thinking, Lali was like, I was trying to remember, because we were having that conversation with Hassan about what about doing some shorter Qawwalis in a set? And obviously I've always been a little bit not as inspired. I'm not resistant to the idea, but it's less like, it doesn't quite get me excited. Because it's always the longer, bigger development ones where there's more space to go different places that are, I don't know, I always start with the sense of like, oh yeah, like what's gonna happen? I feel really enthused. While the shorter ones are like, okay, we'll just smash this one out, we know how it goes kind of feeling. And so when we were having that discussion, that's when I thought like, wait, when we do those performances in the theaters in London, I always think of the Live in Paris box set of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Because that's like the gold standard of excellent Qawwali performed in like theater stage format. So it's funny because I've always made that association, like subconsciously, like that's how we want to sound. Not that we can actually achieve that level, but in our own way, present Qawwali in that patient, developed, like classically sensitive kind of format. And so I made that association. We were on that call like a couple months ago. And so to think of like changing that format was a strange concept at first. But then I also had this thought of like, what was it like when we first heard that album? Because that was a big one in our stash. I mean, there was a lot of them. Like, because it made such a subconscious imprint for me that's the association I have of like what I want to achieve or what I strive to achieve in this lifetime. So I was wondering, like, can you remember how it felt when we were listening to those albums over? And we had the video too, the VHS, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking about that too when we were talking about how we first discovered Qawwali, and that was one of the elements that was so exciting about how long the songs were in comparison to 2, 3, 4 minute song, you know, taking time to build even before you even get into the song. There's like these long prayers where they're exploring the rag and saying all this poetry, but just taking time with something like that, because we were also into this different styles of trance music or devotional music where it was like so timeless, you know, there wasn't a beginning or an end. You just wrote it out for as long as it felt like there was energy for it. And something about that slow build and all the spaciousness, you know, to explore and to allow the spontaneous to happen. And I remember too, oftentimes we'd be like looking for the longest songs, you know.
Yeah,
like if it was under 10 minutes or something, it was like, oh no, they're either going to clip it or it's just going to be a rushed version of the song.
There was two especially where there was like one, like it's a properly like published album, not a famous one, probably on RGH or something like that. And it was Haka Haka, the first time it was like properly published live, and it was like one whole side. And then you have to turn the tape over to continue it, and it cut off before the end. It was like a 16-minute cassette.
Long, yeah.
And that was like my association to Al-Qaeda. And then when we were traveling with Rahat Fateh Ali Khan back from Golra Sharif in Islamabad, there was a mehfil at Golra Sharif where there used to be a lot of Qawwali, so it was kind of more rare lately, and it was Rizwan Wazam, and we drove up with Rizwan Wazam, and we got there, and they played, and then Rahat Fateh Ali Khan played, and I was back with Irshad and was playing with them, and Dilad was playing with them.
Yeah.
So it was like very good. It was only 6-8 months after Farouk had passed away, and it was like one of those all-night mehfils. So Rizwan Wazam had this smashing set until like God knows when, in the middle of the night, and then Rahat and crew played until the morning. So we waved goodbye to Rizwan Mazam and like stayed for Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. And then got a ride home to Faisalabad with them. And it was already like 9 a.m. when we hit the road, because they played like literally past Fajr. And Rahat Sahab was like, check this out. Because they always had like the one car that had like the leader of the group and the manager and his brother, whatever. And then they had the van of like everybody else kind of thing. So we got to be in Rahat's car, so I was like, oh, cool, like air conditioning and good stereo. And he's like, check this out. And he pulls out this cassette. And he's like, 90-minute cassette, you know, the 90-minute ones. And he puts it in. Hakali also didn't finish. It was like the never-ending Hakali.
Wow.
And we would listen to it like one time, and then we listen to it another time. The song doesn't finish, and then he puts it on from the start again. And then at the end, he gives us the cassette.
Whoa.
We still have that cassette.
Wow.
And that's where we got a lot of the verses and things that we developed from that particular one. And you just never wanted it to end. Like, why would you want another song to start? Like, there was no... Yeah, anyway, so...
The other day, Andre pulled out some Nusrat song, and he was like, this is my favorite song ever, you know? And I think we were talking about what's your favorite recording. And I was thinking about how some of my favorite recordings, it's hard to settle on just one because there's so many. And there's like those really clean albums like the Live in Paris. But some of my favorite evers was like the most grittiest, stretchy tapes with like, you could feel the crowd, you could feel the people going must. And it wasn't necessarily the highest quality audio, but there was like an energetic in the room of like this live rowdy mehfil that was just brought so much creativity to like Kansab vibing off the crowd and really like doing the most and like repeating things that were getting people like really excited. And somehow those are still some of my favorite recordings, when you can really feel the ambiance of the crowd and the uncle going huck and must, and
That recording had a few key changes, didn't it?
Yeah,
You played the other night.
those little stretchy
it's
tape,
fantastic.
you know.
Makes it human, though.
Exactly.
Today, when I was driving into town for lunch, I was listening to the new Rizwan Muslim, which just came out today.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
At the foot of the Beloved, yeah. And it's really nice, of course. And it's like real world, so it's so well recorded. I can hear the Neumann mics like such like high fidelity. But obviously, it's very like perfect the way that it's cut and designed as short songs. Like it's really nice. But then it does leave you craving. Like when we were listening, I was with Ilahi, and they were talking about wanting to learn Sanson Ki Mala the other day. And so we had it on the stereo. They're like, "Ooh, what's that song? I want to learn that song. What's that?" And I was playing it, that really old version, that where Bhagali Bagh is like in his element, and it's like the classic one in God knows which like school gymnasium in Manchester or whatever. And there's this part or this thing, and like Bhagali Bagh and Hussain Saab like Maqsood start at the same time in a solo, and it's a really funny harmony because like,
Clash.
yeah, and I play that, and I played back and like listen to this, like this is what actually happens sometimes, you know. It's like the actual element of Qawwali is like, you know, it's spontaneous when anything can happen anytime.
Yeah.
And when that's taken out, it's almost like something's missing.
Yeah.
Like there has to be like
There has to be freedom.
there has to be like a crack voice and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
somebody misses a clap, or like
Yeah.
two people start a solo at the same time and some person has to pull back their alap, or like there's a rag change and the harmonium player misses one of the notes, or you know, it's,
This theme
That's just what I've been trying to replicate.
that was directed at someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tharbai, I'm also interested to ask you, how did you get into Qawwali, and how you made it your, your living, and I'm curious.
by ripping off kids like you, pay you a little bit, take all the money, live this lavish life.
Child labor.
With money raining from the sky. No, I mean, I've told the story so many times.
Yeah,
but,
he just told it the other night. Even.
like last night.
Yeah, last night. That was right. Right, last
You
night.
were at that show as well.
Yeah, where he found his first cassette and
Yeah.
from the library.
Himself asleep.
Yeah, from the library.
Yeah, so from the Nova Scotia Library. But the moment that was kind of an epiphany moment, I could say briefly, was that because I was so interested in all these different traditional world music genres, because they had, I know, there's like a spirit to a lot of this traditional music, because I guess popular music or a lot of Western music is pretty scrub clean of any actual like depth and spontaneity and spirituality. Later, I kind of found my way into like here's some really good like jazz music that's like recorded live and stuff like that. And you're like, oh wow, there was like a deep stream of like pure creativity there. Or sometimes like classical orchestral music I also listen to a lot when it's like very beautifully and creatively composed. Like there's things. But I think I was looking for that raw, real kind of very high spirited connection to community, connection to nature, connection to devotion sort of music. And I don't know if you know, but I studied Gnawa music for quite a while, which is Moroccan Sufi trance music. I studied Senegalese Tama in Sabar for a while. This is also from Baifal, also spiritual Sufi music. So I studied quite a few, and had been to a lot of countries learning music. But it was this one moment when I was in Hawaii where we first actually started the Fanna-Fi-Allah, and I had an old Datsun truck. And you have your feud cassettes in the glove box back then. You could pull them out if they were melted, And there was this one cassette, I probably got it at a yard sale or something, and it was the best of real world artists. So it like had one track of all the artists from real world, like Mamadi Keita and all the classic artists back then. And Yusundur.
Yeah, a lot of African music.
Mia Makeba, like each of the, I don't remember who was who back then.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I was actually sleeping in the back. I don't know if you remember that truck, but the back was very small. I was sleeping in. Somebody else was driving, and that cassette was going.
Right.
And I didn't know I listened to a lot of Qawwali in the car, etc., whatever. And I was in this kind of liminal state because it was so hot and hard to sleep that I was like half asleep and listening. And I remember really enjoying the music back when we used to listen to a lot more music before we were like staring at our phones and stuff. And I remember this feeling of when the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan song came on, I felt like all my cells kind of just like light up. I felt this really profound, like visceral experience of like deep, profound joy and appreciation, enthusiasm and excitement. Like my whole body was like, ooh. And I was in this kind of sleepy state, so I wasn't like consciously being like, oh, now we're listening to the Qawwali song. Oh, now we're listening to the Chinese song. Now we're listening to the Peruvian song. It just came on and I felt this whole profound, I felt moved. And it was Shamsu Doha. Yeah. And after that ride, I decided, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna study any of these other musics in like a serious way because it requires a lot of work. So I'm gonna specifically focus on Qawwali music, and that's when we decided to make the first rendition of Fanna-Fi-Allah, which was about 10 people, kind of like Ilahi. It was big in the early days, and we decided we would practice 3 times a week. How long? 2 hours, 3 hours a day?
Probably.
We didn't have busy schedules back then.
Yeah.
And we would do a concert with 4 songs. So we kind of, I planned it. I was like, oh, this is a project. Whoever was really interested. A lot of people wanted to be involved in this because I had studied Indian classical music and tabla and a local. So we did this concert, and then people really, really loved the experience. And it was like quite a unifying journey to learn together. It was really uplifting to have something to share with the community that really touched everybody. So we just never stopped since then. But that was one epiphany moment in the whole wild story.
Yeah, we recruited out everybody we knew who could hold a tune, you know. Mostly it was women who could actually hold a good tune who we were singing with. For some reason I thought it was when we were in Varanasi that year after the Kumbh Mela, and we went to that electro Sarod Qawwali, whatever it was.
That's called a Bulbul Tara.
Yeah, or the whatever it was, and we got back to the guest house and all crammed into the one room, and you and Narayan were like, yo, that was not a good representation of Qawwali. That was no Qawwali. And you like listen to Allahu over and over and over and try to transcribe it, just to
And
play
rewind the little, what do you call those, Walkmans?
Yeah, just to like break down the wordage, and I'm sure it was all slandered out, but that was the first time I remember you actually trying to recreate a Qawwali. But yeah, that then in Big Island.
I remember how hard it was to figure out a melody, like listen and be like, when they come in on like Ahmed, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the Sa. And then everything else was like, and then some other notes. So it took a while to like listen and like pitch recognition take a long. But you know what I thought of is like the, like say for example, somebody in Ganesh Puri in India is like a Michael Jackson fan. You know there's a lot of them. So he listens to Michael Jackson since he's like 10 years old. He's really into it. And then he's like, my dream is to go to, I don't know, Los Angeles or wherever Michael Jackson's from. And I want to go and like learn like R&B, like that R&B pop. And you get there to like the R&B scene or whatever and expect that everybody's as good as Michael Jackson. That's what happened to us. Because we could only get a few cassettes of Qawwali. I mean, especially in Nova Scotia, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Abda Parveen, the Sabri brothers. It wasn't until later that I heard all these other amazing Qawwalis. So when we first went to India, we're like, oh, we're gonna go to the shrine that's being sung about here, of Khaja Muin Chishti, and get to hear some Qawwali. And it was so exciting, take a long, long trip, like such a mission, such a pilgrimage, and get there and be like, oh, that's not the same thing. Oh, that's not very good. It took a long time to actually hear some actual, somewhat like musically or poetically or aesthetically or on any level like trained Qawwals in India, till you find the lineages and you catch the slipstreams and You know, so I just thought of it like that. Imagine you like just listen to Mariah Carey and then get to the like New York and be like, hey, I'm gonna like learn to sing like that. And it's like nobody sings like that. Like that loud. Oops. Like where's Whitney Houston? You know?
I thought about that story too, just like idolizing all these koalas, and then like the first time that I went to Data Sab and you know, for Jumeirah or whatever, and being like, oh my God, there's Dildar, there's Rahat, there's Rizwan Muazzam, and there's like all these people that we had actually listened to and how accessible they were. And to think like if somebody actually grew up loving a style of music like that, like R&B music, and being like, I'm gonna go to America and try to meet these people, is so inaccessible, you know, that you could actually connect with people like that. But us going there and having like open invitations into all the homes of all these amazing musicians who are actually really receptive and really like stoked that these foreigners showed up, so eager and so inspired to learn. Yeah, that was like a dream come true.
You also lived at Dildar Saab's place quite a bit too, yeah?
I spent some time.
Yeah. So
I also lived with him for a summer back in California before I joined the group.
Yeah.
Like a few years before I joined the group. Yeah, it was really sweet. Just like we became, you know, good buddies for a minute.
He loves
you
you.
his
He
best
does
friend
love
on
you.
tour.
What was the experience like in Pakistan?
He told me that Deva was his best friend.
He liked my sandwiches. He was a big fan of my sandwiches.
Yeah.
Like every night, midnight or 1 a.m., like come wake me up, be like, Andre, one sandwich, please. You know, please.
What about-
and then one picture, like you wanted to watch a movie, and at the time we only had like one
DDLJ.
DVD of DDLJ. And every night for like 3-4 months, pretty much, I would have to watch DDLJ with Dildar because he just wanted to hear some, you know, wanted to hear some of his own language.
Mother tongue
and,
music.
just like, and so from like 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. every night almost, to be like, please, just one picture. Watch this.
I know a little bit of what it's like, because like I go back to visit Alia in Australia, and it's loud here. Not loud like in Lahore loud, like what, I don't know, 20-30% of that volume.
Yeah.
And then you get to Australia, and it's like nothing's happening, nobody's out shouting on the streets. And you're like, ooh, it's almost like
Eerie,
uncomfortably quiet. So that's what probably they would have felt even
Partially,
more.
and just feeling like kind of alone. I mean, it was just like a couple of us in the house. It was a very quiet place, you know, and just wanting, and also, you know, they're up all night. That's like their schedule, right? Is being up all night. So it's just different kind of vibe. It's really sweet though. Yeah, good moments.
Fun times.
Did he tell you some good stories too?
Yeah, I mean, there's like definitely a language barrier at the time, you know. I mean, we spoke a few words of each other's language, but it was just really sweet. You know? Like, please just, you know, sleep in the bed next to me or whatever, like just to not feel alone. You know, it's like it was so cute. It was like really adorable.
What an honor.
Abrar was too young.
Huh?
Abrar
No, Abrar went back to Pakistan at some point. He was there for some of it, you know, but he, I think, arrived maybe later or left early. Yeah.
This last tour, I think, was quite nice to like relive. I think some of those memories for you guys as well.
Yeah.
Like I think just being in the car, like I've always heard these stories secondhand. I was always so excited to hear about them. I was like, oh, what did he say about this? You know, and I was lucky enough to sit next to him for at least a few days on the road, and just hearing some of those stories firsthand was just incredible. I felt so blessed and honored to be in his presence, let alone have him in the passenger seat driving. You know. Yeah, it's just I think we're collectively been really privileged to not only, you know, see these great artists, but, you know, spend time with them. Hopefully their blessings, you know, are carried through our performances over the next little bit.
Yeah, it's important. It's what I wish for all people studying this music. As you know, in the UK scene, it becomes a bit of like an echo chamber where people are competing in a very like small kind of like field. But when you get to interact with these masters and hear them like in real life, like right there, then there's no room to feel like you have like that you can develop a strong ego of like being better than anyone. Because they're just so much better than any. It's like there's not even like a margin there. So always having that effect of like, wow, that's what's possible if you're trained correctly and devote yourself and have the gumption and have the gravitas to really go deep and be reverent to your tradition, to your ancestors, to the spiritual element. So we've always felt like, whoa. And literally, there's no way not to do it when I sit down personally to play. You know, I feel really proud of myself and my lineage, but I always feel like, oh my God, I just feel like such a little baby. And I can feel all my ustads kind of looking over me like, yeah, that was an okay saregam, you know. You could have da. Like I feel that kind of constantly, which is kind of fun. But it's because of the amount of exposure we've had with the ustads, there's no way to escape it. You can't pretend you didn't hear that. Because they're like all night. And it wasn't just, like Lali said, so we got to Data Sab and we saw like Ustad Rizwan Mazam, Ustad Dillar Hussain, Ustad Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, Ustad Sher Merli, right?
Yeah.
And then we're like hanging out with Ustad Akhtar Sharif, like living in their homes. Ustad Damat Ali, like living in their homes. Ustad Faz Ali Faz, like night after night in their homes. And like Ustad Bakshi Javed Salama guys, like right in their reality. Like you don't just go to a concert and pay and see a thing and then leave. You're like all night listening to them singing. And yeah, back when Simon Irshad was still alive and we were at his home and like he brings his sons in and his uncle from down the street and someone comes on tablas who I don't even remember now, but I remember he was like pretty bloody good. Like,
yeah,
you know, and they're just like singing for you for hours and hours, and you never forget that imprint because that was that initial imprint. And then I try to sing like whatever, and they're like, "Oh, Kabad, like really good," and in my mind I'm like, "What?"
Totally.
But so encouraging. They've always been so.
Yeah, incredibly.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's genuine.
Yeah, there were so many koals that we had never even heard about that were like, oh my God, this person exists, and like, who's this? And so many different nuanced styles and levels, and even like the no-name koals on the side of the street at the by the chai shop, were just like these old men, and we're just so rocking and so ripping, and like, it's such a vibe.
Yeah, because there's Qawwali like as a like people that want to like hit the world stage, you know, like as a profession. But then most Qawwals like aren't even considering that. It's just, for one thing, it's just very, very, it's almost impossible to get out of Pakistan as a Qawwal. So they live that life in the Dargah, being a Darbari Qawwal or playing Mahfil here and there and this and that. And there's no thought of like playing in a concert hall in another country. It's not really in their field. So to be around, like you said, Qawwals that aren't trying to like perform in that way, like it's impossible to say that like Darbari Qawwali can be performed, can be sung outside of the Dargah on like a concert stage with like amplification and lights and an audience like that. Yeah, it lives like it. The context is what creates that energy too. The way that people are just sitting right there and like feeling it, and when people are far away and the audience like sitting on seats usually can't even see them when you're performing because of the stage lighting or whatever. There's no way to kind of. So it's a different thing.
Yeah, because in those environments, it's purely done for your own soul. But once it's commercial, it's done for other people, right? So you got to forget about yourself, but you got to focus on what people like. And in the actual mehfil, it's the reason it's so raw. It touches you is because they're in their own trance, they're in their own world, they're in their own space, and they've forgotten about the world. They're doing it for themselves, and that's actually the way that it even actually touches other people quicker. because you feel that connection, you feel that depth of riyāz, of, you know, in Qawwali tabla from experience, the first 5 minutes you're out. After first 5 minutes you're out. I don't, you know, how do they go on for hours and hours and hours?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
How did you get into it? Because you're coming from a classical trained. So that's like, and
So
also not being, because you're Sikh family.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, yeah. So
how
as
did
I
you-
mentioned earlier, coming from a very pure Punjabi family, and yeah, my training has been completely classical from the age of 2 from Ustad Tariq Khan Sahib. And obviously, Qawwali is a very different world. It was sort of a thing where I was, you know, and still am very happy in the journey. I was practicing my qaidas, practicing everything Ustadji has told me. And Qawwali always had there was a soft spot for Qawwali always. We grew up listening to Qawwali all the time. It would be like our dessert. You know, the mains would be Ustad Tariq Khan Sahib. And then for dessert, we'll listen to Qawwali. Something a bit, for us, was light-hearted. I didn't understand Qawwali to how deep it is. So for me, it was like the cheesecake, you know? Nice meat with the qaidas and chakradars. And then you move on to Dildar Sahib's sweet, beautiful tabla and Qawwalis with Khan Sahib. And it was only when I started to experiment and I had the classical duggi, the bass, and I started putting it in my lap and started playing. And it wasn't accepted first. You know, my dad did tell me, no, this is not our thing. We are classical players. You know, you got to do what you've been taught. But what I would always do, I'd do my practice, and riyāz for us was growing up from the age of 4 onwards, practicing at least 5-6 hours a day. I've missed half of my school. I don't even know if anybody knows that. I've missed half of my school.
Oh, that makes sense.
That makes a lot of things. That's why I've got the best handwriting out of all of you guys. And yeah, most of my exams I've missed because I just wanted to practice tabla day and night. And it was day and night for us in that household, coming from a musical family as well. And then one time I was playing tabla on my bed with a duggi without a dama. I didn't know what a dama was. I just thought Dildar Sahib used to put a duggi and he had a powerful hand, so it sounded different. And I remember my dad walking in and he said, "Who's playing that?" And I said, "It was me." And he shut the door. Normally it would be, "No, stop, come and have your food." "Oh, that's not our thing. I'll give you a letter, play your solo." But this time he shut the door and let me carry on. And for me, that was the right, go ahead. If you're doing it properly, do it properly. And it was very spontaneous. And it's hard for me to put in words.
How old were you?
I was probably 14, 15 then. And it's hard to put into words of how the transition happened, where I just started for fun playing Qawwali tabla. I do remember putting a little video out on socials that, you know, I'm trying to experiment this. And that was like the biggest gift and blessing that I got, because it just opened so many doors where in the UK there are not many, hardly any Qawwali tabla players playing. And it was where I started performing with Qawwal groups, local Qawwali groups in the UK, and sort of found my rhythm. I mean, the Qawwali tabla in itself technically is all self-taught. I've never been, I'm a spiritual student of all the Qawwali tabla players, including Ustad Dildar Sahib. But I've never learnt the Qawwali style. It's the same kind of thing. Put videos on, pause them. How is he sitting with his knee? Why has he got his leg like that? Oh, he's playing that, he's playing that. The advantage I had was because on a technical perspective, the Qawwali tabla is easy in terms of syllables, what you're playing. But the whole technique required is so different. It's two different worlds. Even me, when I was growing up, I thought, Qawwali tabla is just a karwa, and you got to just keep going and keep going. But getting into the world now, doing it for the last now 13, 14 years as well, it's taught me so much where, wow, this is actually a different world. You could have all the training you have, but if you gave a classical tabla player a Qawwali tabla, they'll feel the difference. I mean, I feel it because I'm classically trained, and the minute I sit like that, the weight, the transfer of the balance, it's so different. It's so different. And that was it. And then just sort of, I've always been just performing, practicing, and then I actually watched you guys. We all know the story. I watched you guys when you came in the UK. I was a little boy then, and I reached out to this gentleman on my left, and I asked him if he needed a tabla player in the UK, let me know. But he probably saw me as just a fanboy, as many other thousands of inboxes you probably have at the moment. So he put me in the spam waiting.
I still gotta find that message. I'm gonna look for it.
You have to look for
I'm
it.
gonna cut and
You have to
copy
look
it
for
for
it.
posterity and put it on my altar in a frame.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, your message, nothing.
Nothing. Then my journey with Fanna-Fi-Allah started, I think about 4 years ago. 2022, I think, was the first year we toured. Barbican was the first show I done with you guys.
No,
Portugal.
Muji's,
That was Muji Baba's, in Lisbon. Lisbon was that was probably the best way, I think, because we sort of,
we had some time together.
Time together to understand, oh dear, what have I got myself
weird we
into?
all are.
How weird you guys are. I think on the second day, somebody put like 5 loaves of bread or something in my room.
Yeah, bimbo bread.
Bimbo bread.
It's like a hazing.
Oh, okay, it's part of it. It's
what
part of
Ronnie
the.
tells us to look forward to when we hit the ground.
All right. Keep an eye out for the bread.
Right.
But no, that was great. We had like 5-6 days of just Qawwali day and night, really.
sweet.
Yeah, and that was so much fun. And then we had Barbican, and then I think UK tours. And
Things just went
everything.
from
just
there.
went from crazy to even crazier.
It's funny because the whole thing about the Dhamma, that I also learned in the VHS. Because you can't usually see the tabla player.
No,
Like,
it's hidden.
we had that one of Ustad Sher made in London, which was another one of our favorite ones to watch with Nigahi and Chudakar and all that. And you could see the Amjad Ali Khan like playing like that, like hitting it really hard. You could see his arm go back.
Yeah.
And so many other videos, and you couldn't really see. And it was in this one, and it was when they played Ya Hussein, and they stopped to do the alap, and the last stab like pulled up the Dhamma and went pung, and then like put some art on it really quick when they were doing the alap.
Yeah.
And you caught a glimpse of it for a second. That was
You're
the
like,
first time I saw it, and I was like, oh, what is that? Because I had played the dholak and tabla when I was younger. Obviously, I never got very good, but I was really into it. And so I saw it, I was like, oh, what's that? And then it wasn't until I went to Pakistan when you see it.
You see it, yeah.
Yeah, in India, I'd ask around, like, oh, do you have a Dhamma? And it wasn't a thing. Now it's getting, in Punjab, it's becoming...
It's becoming
more-
This is
Yeah,
the
like-
Geordie, right? Which
Yeah,
is,
the
which is
typical,
similar.
yeah.
Punjabi Geordie. You know, like Lovepreet's making all those ones, and
Yeah.
people are. It's becoming a little revived, which I like.
Just
But,
recently, huh?
Unless they,
Wonder.
And I remember going to the Beena shop, and they're like, oh, we have a Dhamma, and they bring out like a metal
steel,
one.
yeah, the steel
And I'm like,
copper one, yeah.
and it's with like, it doesn't have
The plastic, the soft leather.
it doesn't have leather, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, that's not correct. And it was Underwella. I still bought it. But anyway.
That was my first Dhamma too.
And
From
they were
jazz
bad.
musicals, yeah.
No light too. There's no
It
way.
was, it was like a gold copper with like 60 tons of masala. And you just touch it, it'll just go boom. So you just have to grab all the sound, make all the sound as much as you can out of it. And I still have it. Like I actually have I remember playing non-stop in the UK. We had a show, and before the show we had a pre-show, which is basically everybody gets together in a room and starts playing for 6 hours before the show, and then we had the show, and then after that, whoever didn't have enough of Qawwali would invite us to a house, and then we would sit down and play some more. And I remember the bass, the dhamma, and one of my tablas was actually covered in blood afterwards because of blisters.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my trophy. And I still got those. I still have them. Probably should keep them somewhere safe, away from people.
When I first saw them, like when we went to Lahore, I went to Paniwala Talab and Dalmandi, and Bharti Gate, like all the old parts of Lahore where you have the instrument wallas. You can see in our film too where we're going through. It's so gritty and so cool. These are little hobbit holes with people that have like haven't vacuumed in generations, I tell you. And there's like probably like particles of like reeds of like Ustad Farooq Fateh Ali Khan's harmonium when those particles are still there. And we get there and there's like these old kind of racks of like old like shells, as you call them.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time seeing like those old shells of chattus and hummas up there, and like I was like musically aroused. They're like just like so perfectly cured wood and with those stripes and
the colors, the red, pink.
Ever since then, I was like had such a fetish with like really properly made tablas. And it wasn't till, because you know we had them and got them made and from scratch, and I still like know not much, even though I like skinned them and this and that and tried to play, but it wasn't till that time in room number 5. Room number 5 in Pilot Hotel.
Pilot Hotel.
Yeah. So we're in the Urs of Data Ganji Baksh talking to other Qawwals and this and that. And they're like, oh, you're going to room number 5 at the Pilot Hotel. I'm like, no, what's that? And we've been to Mahfil and Dargah and Mahfil over there all day, all night. And other hotels too. And the Pilot Hotel was where we first met the big Ustads because they used to stay there before they revamped it.
And they had a stage set up in the courtyard.
Courtyard
So
stage.
they'd have like programs
There's
there.
Qawwali everywhere.
And like all the heavy hitters had rooms, and also some big peers and stuff.
Yeah, there
too.
was like Ijaz Siddiqui was still alive. Ghulam Abbas still had his group. Badr Miadad, like there was a lot of good Qawwals.
Yeah.
It was like a lot.
Raymat was around.
Yeah,
Qawwali
Raymat with
Bag,
the Z and Z back then when they were
when they
babies.
were little toddlers.
Yeah,
ZZ Top.
yeah.
ZZ toddlers.
Kale Khan was
Kala
like,
Khan, Bagali Bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next generation.
There was endless good Qawwali.
Yeah.
Anyway, so room number 5, we get there and we like go through there and I'm like, and then I'm in this like room that's about this big, and there's a lot of people in it. And then they look and they're like, oh, Tahir Qawwal and Hamna Chishti, like come. And we're like, oh no, like go to
It's
the
packed, like people and huddling.
go
you
to
know,
the
like,
front, and there's like
being-
2 harmoniums and a set of tabla there. And we're like, oh, we're just coming to like this and one of our like peer subs that was really into us was like, no, come play. I'm like, no, it's not like you don't have the ijazat to play somebody else's instruments. We didn't even know who they were, whose instruments they were. And I'm like, no, play. And you don't know which manners to follow. The manners of like, don't play other people's instruments without ijazat, or like ignore like a peer with a really perfect beard and a big turban that everybody's listening to in that moment. And you're like, so we're like, okay. So we go and there's like a big tama and just like, we've never heard such a well-tuned like, and super super flexible and very light. Like it was a mango one. And I touched the harmonium. It was like a really old one. Like I was like, oh, like such action. And so we started playing, and then they got really crazy and played mangate and really good. And then the Ustad Javed Bakshi Salamat walks in with his whole crew, and they were all in pinstripe sherwanis with like perfectly slicked like black hair.
They look like mobsters.
Like oily, like, and they looked pissed. And they came in with their big black pinstripes and were like, and just like cowered away, you know, into the corner, like. And little did I know, because they were in the UK the year before, so we didn't even know who they were. I didn't know it was my Dada Ustad's son. So we were like, and that was like my grand Ustad's harmonium that I had played. So I didn't know that whole connection, but we felt it, you know? And then later we became friends and learned a lot from them. But it was such a funny experience to first be like, oh, that's what like a perfectly like cared for, skinned, played, tuned hama actually sounds like. Yeah, I'd never know until that moment. It has so much tactile care to really sound like that. You don't just get it off the shelf and play.
No.
It takes like same with the harmonium. It takes weeks, months, years to like tune it and cure it and fix every little bit to perfection. And
Was that the same Mayfield we saw them play, and where Sheikh Salama did something insane, and his harmonium player
Yeah.
started bawling to the point where he couldn't even play anymore. He got up and nazared him, and then he was like so emotional that he couldn't even play for the rest of the song.
Yeah, so Rohit, we were there, the whole group came in after, and Ustad Jubaid Salaman and crew played, and that's
it was just you and me, even.
Yeah, prime like in their glory, we're like right up front, like this close to them.
VIP seats, like at the end of the line.
Yeah.
Is that in the movie?
So good, huh?
Is that in the movie?
I don't know, you have to find out. And so they were playing Mankunta Mola, and we've always had a crush on that Qawwali, still do. Been going steady with that Qawwali for a long time. And they're playing it, and it's amazing. I remember too, because you could hear all the dhamal out of this ear, because the window was open. It was so loud in the streets, and then you're listening to. I had to phase my attention over there, and listening. And they got to the tarana, and then Jubaid Salamat Sahab had this whole barrage of crazy, classical style, tihais and holbats,
so
and
wild.
takrar with the tabla player. And the whole time he looked like he was gonna murder the tabla player. It was just a certain attitude they have.
Yeah,
Every time they had a different tabla player.
Leaning way.
Yeah, I can second that.
Yeah, and now I think about it, every year they had a different tabla player, so maybe they were literally murdered after the match. I don't think so. And it was so good that one of his younger brothers in the middle, I forgot his name, Masood Salamat, he burst into tears. He's literally playing in the group and singing amazing. He burst into tears because the one of the bold parts was so on point, and we were all just oh. And then he's literally uncontrollably crying.
He got up, nazared him,
and then he gets up and is crying and throwing nazar on his bigger brother, and which is still going, and it is still playing. And he's crying into the money, and then other people are throwing money on top of them. I was like, what is this, man? That's so cool. And then that whole happened, and we were just oh, that was really powerful, really amazing. And then Akhtar Sharif came in and played for the first time. I never knew. I was like, are these guys from Alice in Wonderland? They were so psychedelic and so interesting with their matching. They had red sweaters and just so sweet. And their vibe and
the mood.
And it was so good. I was so moved. I was so moved that when he finished his set, I uncontrollably dove into his lap and hugged him and was crying into his lap in front of everyone. I was out of control because it was such a powerful experience. And he was Brita. It's you come my home after. So literally the next day we were in their tour van with their big hookah heading to their house. It's
Nice.
What do you call that, Pied Piper style? You're just so infatuated, well infatuated with them.
Oh my God.
For good reason.
I want to hear a little bit about, because it's interesting too how you've had these opportunities to be with the masters, and I know you spoke a little bit about what it's like to tour with Dilda, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about the inspiration behind that, because I know it's a really huge deal for you two specifically to meet Dilda and how he inspired your music, a little bit more about your backstory and a little bit more about how that music has nourished you and inspired you.
Dildar Sahab was actually one of my earliest musical inspirations. Kind of back to that Dhamma subject, actually, for years I was convinced it was a dhola, because we had no idea. And as Tahir Bhai said, the tabla player always sat at the back, so you only really saw the daya in view, and so you saw something that he was playing, and you just, I just assumed it was a dholak or, a small dholak or something to that effect. And actually because I had no knowledge of it, I actually tried to get it made, doing kind of similar thing to what Tahir Bhai said, trying to capture a snapshot from some concert footage.
Yeah.
And I asked one of my friends who was actually connected to a tabla maker in Hyderabad, and they actually sent me out what they thought a dhamma was, which was basically a really big daya. And actually, I'm not sure if you remember, but the first time I played with Tahir Bhai, I actually used that as the dhamma, and he's like, "Bro, this is not a dhamma," and he gave me some pointers. Actually, we went to like the nearest Whole Food store, and we got some atta, and we did all sorts of things to make it try to sound a bit more like a dhamma. But I took it back home, and my dad and I pulled it apart because it was maybe like 6-7 kilos. Yes, it was just a big wooden shell. And we gutted it to the point where it was like, what we now know is actually like a dhamma. It never sounded quite the same, but it was just and I think I'm really grateful for having had all these experiences because it all contributes to like why this means so much to me. Is that it wasn't, just on a platter for me. Like you had to learn, you had to investigate, you figure things out. Like, even like the harmoniums, like this is a journey we're still going through today. I mean, we're pulling parts out of harmoniums, we're changing reeds, we're adjusting attack, to try to at least sound like the masters, and this is through years of listening to CDs and cassettes. And, you can go you can find a lot of things on YouTube about most things, but I love the fact that we have to go through a huge journey to find this information, and obviously culminating in meeting Dildar Sahab and being able to just ask him, Right. And, the little things like the first day being on tour with him and learning that the way that I held the Dhamma was completely wrong. Obviously I've seen Kashbai play, but I guess now that I've been focused more in on the harmonium, I perhaps haven't given it the attention it deserved. But I was like, no time like asking Kansa, and then he showed me exactly how to position it and to get the maximum resonance out of the drum. And I was, whilst you're taking it all in, you're like, hold on a moment, like I'm speaking to Kansa about something that I've, seen him do, and it's the most magical experience I've had, and I'm so blessed to have had it. But yeah, I think what makes that whole experience means so much more is that it's not easily acquired. So I mean, I've got lots of friends who are shagirds of the great ustads, Kashbai, great example, Ustad Tariq Khan Sahab, and my little brother, Kush, is a shagird of Zakir Ji, may he rest in peace. And so I heard all these stories, and all that information is really easily accessible because they always resided in Western countries, and there was a lot of interviews and a lot of even literature about their experiences, but there's very little about Dildar Sahab. There's some, half a dozen interviews where he's spoken in Punjabi, and it was a great experience to be able to just ask him on those long road trips. Most amazing experience of my life for sure.
I think for me, I'll sum it up and then I'll go into detail. I met my superhero and I wasn't disappointed. You build up a picture about what someone's going to be like. He's a brand. For me, the certain things that stood out about Khan Sahab was, this was first coming from a perspective as a boy. So there's no disrespect to any tabla players out there, but I thought he was the best looking tabla player. First of all, he had so much style. Like if somebody who didn't know Qawwali would to watch a video, you couldn't tell who was playing tabla because he was so upright, and it was just looking at Khan Sahab like, I'm ready. What have you got? Okay. This is what I've got next. And he just came with renewed energy all the time. Whatever was thrown at him, he did justice. And it's one of those where, if there was no, to my understanding, if there was no Dildar Sahab, there would be no Khan Sahab. There'd be Khan Sahab, but there'd be such a different vibe. And we wouldn't listen to the Qawwali how we listen to it. Khan Sahab's, so Dildar Sahab's inspiration actually came very later in my tabla journey, because up until maybe the age of 15, 16, I was fully hardcore, playing classical, listening to classical, performing classical, solo, a ghazal accompaniment, classical accompaniment. But when it came into sort of me playing around with the Qawwali side of it more, very similar to what Chetan Bhai said, it was about how is this guy making that sound, and what is the instrument? How is it how does he create certain sounds and how does he play it in that position for so long? And that was what really triggered me to want to find out. And even in general for Qawwali music, in terms of the tabla accompaniment, what really fascinates me is the responsibility element of how you have that responsibility of making 10, 13, 15 people sing, and you are responsible for the energy. The singers could be singing in their pitches where they are, clapping to the fastest of tempos, but if the tabla is not pumping, if the rhythm is not pumping, you just won't feel that connection, that depth, that spiritual movement in the Qawwali. And that responsibility being so hard and almost impossible, in my perspective, coming from a classical background, that was the challenge that really I wanted to take up. Maybe there's a competitive nature in there. Maybe my siblings or family members would know better. But yeah, I have a desire to win, and I wanted to take up that challenge, and I did. And one thing I was inspired by Dildar Saab is how he kept the classical element in Qawwali as well. And that was what separated him from a lot of amazing, fantastic Qawwali tabla players as well, is that he included a lot of classical. You will hear tabla of Ustad Zakir Saab, Ustad Larka Saab, Ustad Tariq Khan Saab, Ustad Mia Shaukat Saab, who is my teacher's teacher, so my Dada Ustad. And that was very, very, very inspiring. And then, yeah, coming back to that point, I met my superhero and I wasn't disappointed. Before the actual shows we performed together, I went to his house with Hassan Bhai, and incredibly grateful for Hassan Bhai for arranging that. And one thing I loved was I didn't have to put on this act that I was meeting a legend. You know, sometimes there are cultural things that you have to do when you know you're meeting somebody so important, so big. I was allowed to be myself, and I don't normally cry at certain things, but I walked in and he was facing the other way, and in the living room he turned around and he saw me, and I was expecting for me to go to him, and I knew what I was going to do. I was going to touch his feet and take his blessings, and the first thing he said was, "Kash bhai, aajo." It's like he was expecting me. And that level of respect from somebody so big, some of you may have seen the videos, I just bawled my eyes out. I fell down in his laps, and I was just like, I couldn't believe that he even honored an idiot like me in his space and made me feel like something, like I was something. And I think that's one thing that I love about him, that is his humbleness, his simplicity. Has made him stand out of so many people. And I think out of music, I think it's such a, like, even for me personally, humanity comes first. Humanity is a massive thing, and I think it's such a big lesson. Before even Qawwali, before even tabla, we can learn just to be humble, be simple, and so approachable from him. And I think that was my highlight and inspiration in the Qawwali tabla world, for sure.
Yeah. There's this, that time when I was staying with him in those months.
Yeah.
Like, I'm, amateur string player, guitarist, but also, besides watching these movies every night with him, he'd also just, pull out the harmonium, make me play something, like just invite me to play music, at any time. And it was just, I'm like, I don't know anything, and he's just wanted to play.
Very,
it.
very
so incredibly sweet and just so encouraging.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
With
huge heart.
Just the package is just so inspiring. So inspiring to be the best at what you do. He's a one man army. And oh my God, even to this age, like, you'll touch the bass, just his tone.
Just
his tone.
Yeah.
And that's where the blessing is. And it's something what you were speaking about earlier, is that, how you said, you can hear your ustads, what they would say to you. And that comes with humble nature, because we to our abilities, we all do the best we can. And we all know we are doing the best we can. We wouldn't be, getting the amount of love and support we have from people globally. But it's that honesty you have with your art. You're very honest and being humble that you're not doing what your masters would probably approve of. And that always keeps you on improving and practicing and wanting to do more. And that's why they say that the learning just never finishes, right? It always goes on, always goes on.
Yeah, just another little Dildar story that I haven't actually shared with you guys, but it made me very emotional after this last tour, is Dildar Sahab actually met Rahat Ali, my ustad, about a month ago, and he went up to him and approached him and said, "I've just spent a bit of time with one of your shagird's." And he said, "Oh, which one?" "Chetan from Australia." And he complimented me on my voice and harmonium playing. And so I have this amazing audio message, which I'll share with you guys at some stage, just kind of speaking on that experience. And I kind of broke down, because you're listening back to that message, you're like Dildar Sahab is talking to Ustad, Rahat Ali about me. It's like the most humbling and it's just surreal, And I could never have imagined that was possible, like even a year ago. But yeah, I mean, much like Kashba, he said he never cries; he always cries. But it was a very very, very emotional moment. I don't have many moments where I break down, but that was definitely one for me.
I cry when you don't sing.
I think if I was to add my experience with the Ustad Dildar Sahab, I was actually really scared to meet such a personality, because him coming from who he played with, and that's what we actually listen to, in the UK is pretty much everybody listens to Nusrat Sahab and everybody performs Nusrat Sahab. They try. Everybody tries their best. I was really scared actually to meet him and what we're gonna talk about, what I'm gonna ask, and how the whole thing is gonna be. And we really, me and a friend of mine, Neil Arora, we contacted his son Abrar Hussain, and we really wanted them to come over to my friend's house, and we arranged. We were lucky that Abrar said they were down in London from after a show, and we reached out to Ustad's son, and he said yes, we can come tomorrow. And then we called a few of our friends. We were really excited actually that Ustad Dildar Sahab was gonna come, and everybody's like, "Oh, what should we do?" And then then he came, and we actually I think we had a puja thali at the door when he came, and it was just it's like not. It's like you feel like God is walking to your house if you're a Qawwali lover, because that's the dhamma that you hear, the tabla, and you're like, wow, he's here. This is it. This is the full stop to the story, and this is where it ends. But for somebody like me, and then just listen to his his deep voice, and it's like, wow. And it was one thing was he gives respect to everybody. Such a lovely personality. I drove by, I need to go outside for a smoke, and I was like, what's Taji come, and but yeah, he's such a humble person, and I think he's just adorable, just like, and I was asking him all this sort of like, I had a million questions in my head, can you please tell me about how you got involved, how you met, and about his wedding. That's and things that we heard from the other Qawwali groups in the UK, but I wanted to hear from him that is this true, and all the stories that. But obviously, the little time that we had, obviously we had food, and we actually had a session with Abrar, Ostaji, and then on the baja, and then everybody's like, Ostaji, can you play something? And as soon as he touched you know, the tabla and the dhamma. Wow, that was yeah, that was something else. You know, you would get goosebumps. And but yeah, that's my memory of how I met astrology.
It's really interesting how like you were adopted into your culture and you were adopted into your culture. Like there's this really like cross-cultural, very literal thing, and I like that the juxtaposition of like when people, because it's such an actuality, like people now talk about appropriation as a thing, and it comes up a lot, like in our content and how people react and what it means to be in devotion and what it means to just like naturally be drawn to something. Yeah, and really how to, yeah, exactly, like how it reads into the ideals of Sufism, that it's like, it's such a universal practice, it's such a universal art, it's like such a universal appeal, and like, yeah, the whole thing of like, what Shekhar said in the beginning, is that it's like primarily music, like, and like, it's not necessarily religious music per se, but like, it's something that touches your heart, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what background you come from. And so I think I like the way that you guys are bouncing off each other and like just riffing on it, but something that like encapsulates this in this direction at a second.
Okay. Yeah, it's a funny scenario because in this modern day of short content consumption where people hear music and see video compared to how back in the day we didn't want the cassette to end kind of thing. So it's so funny that it's shrunken into such a short, like I remember that feeling of the cassette ending, you're like, oh, it ended, shoot. Okay, turn it over quick, you know? Or the vinyl, you know?
Yeah.
Or the reels, you put it back on. No, it wasn't that old. But to imagine now we're sharing this music and carrying this lineage to a lot of people that are now younger than us, that have an enthusiasm for Qawwali and having to, you know, wanting to cater to it in a way that supports people's listening habits. So sharing little pieces of content that ideally directs them to feel inspired to actually listen to a complete kalam. You know, that's kind of, I guess, my main approach to it. And yeah, there's still obviously a lot of people that listen to the long, full, complete Qawwalis that have a whole journey poetically and musically, and that's what we want to share. You know, it would be interesting for us if all of our content was like 30 to 60 seconds. But yeah, one of the funny thing that doesn't make sense, like she was saying, is that the whole cultural appropriation scenario and how to respond to it. Because for one, like if somebody can only have attention for such a short amount of time, they don't know, you know, our story, they don't know, you know, what we've learned, who has taught us, and they don't know what the meaning of Qawwali is, like what tasawwuf, what Sufism really stands for, you know, as far as unifying people and transcending barriers. But it's funny, there's such a trend to create barriers and exaggerate differences between people, like, oh, they are white, oh, they're, you know, from Europe, or, you know, these people are different. It's so funny. It's like the complete opposite of what tasawwuf is about. And it just becomes such a short form way of communicating as well. Because if it was like a full communication, you'd be like, oh, okay, this is Qawwali music. Okay, these people, you know, studied from the grand masters of this tradition. They've been initiated into it. They've been taught and they're carrying this tradition. Okay, and I don't like his voice, or something like that is more like realistic. But to have like a very short form answer to a very profound subject, it's just, it's something that I don't usually speak to because it's not quite like an evolved enough language for me to engage in, but it's funny to actually watch it play out. And it's also like that thing of like cultural appropriation, these people taking our music. Like I come from a place of like having to search so far and so hard just to find like the actual traditional Qawwali music. You know, we got in India, like, to be honest, most of the music is not Indian. Like there's like synthesizer, a drum kit, a saxophone, a Casio, and it's not like it's not an issue for me as far as like, for me it's just a preference. Like I like Qawwali as it has evolved with like how good is it when it's just the tabla and the tanpur and the sarangi, and then like okay the harmonium came in, whatever. And I guess that was a big appropriation of like Western instrument, but I don't think about it like that. It's like an aesthetic thing. Like, does it really suit the quality of the music? Does it carry the the intention and the feel of it further, or does it distract from it?
I mean, Qawwali is like originally an appropriated music. In a way, I mean, Amir Khusro is like bringing bhajan and classical music and music from Persia and lyrics from Persia and whatever, and fusing all that together. I mean, originally that's what it was like how to blend all these worlds together and these different ideas and these different ways of being. And
I don't think
it's purely that actually.
Appropriation
and
wasn't even a concept.
No, exactly. I mean, the harmonium is like. Okay, well, what's that German or whatever from 300 years ago? That's new. That's like appropriated from Europe or whatever it is. So it doesn't. It's just not real. It's just not
strange.
real.
It's a strange language to use for this kind of thing. And it's funny though. Where I was going with that is like, okay, there's the incorporation. Okay, maybe some people can be like, I like the harmonium more as the melodic instrument accompany, or I like sarangi or whatever. It's a personal preference thing. But I can honestly say from the beginning of like looking for the true like traditional like Khandani Qawwali, it's been very hard to like uncover it. And so when I hear Qawwali with like octopad and Casio and saxophone and drum kit and bass guitar and lead guitar, I don't like it. It doesn't carry the spirit. It's like very diluted with like too many things that don't belong in the same thali, It's like you have your thali with your achar, you have your dal, you have your sabji, and then you have like a brownie. Like it doesn't quite work. But that's just my humble...
That's what I had yesterday.
That does sound like you did.
So that's my opinion. And it's just funny because like, it's like, oh, they're taking our music. I'm like, do you play Qawwali music? No. Do you know any actual traditional Qawwali musicians personally? No. And so for us that have to travel so far to actually get past all like the diluted versions of this music, it's like, it's honestly been a journey for me to find my guru and to find like properly carried Drupad music, Khayal, Tumri, all these genres that we've learned. And it's been like a real treasure hunt. So it's not like, oh my God, there's like so many great Qawwali groups everywhere around every corner and we're just gonna steal that. It's like, no, there's very few, and it's a tradition that really deserves to be carried with a lot of honor and carried to many places and many hearts around the world. And I'm not gonna like be like, oh, my precious culture, or you're drinking chai, that's not Indian, or you're playing cricket, that's not Indian, you're playing like the drum kit, that's not, it's like, who even knows where those things are from and who even cares? Like there's a value to our like nationalism, and then there's like a value to like basic like kindness and manners and connection amongst people. And I think that's to some extent that's what the Sufis felt like when you read and sing Baba Bulisha and Sultan Bahu. There's this like constant reminding people of our original essence. If you go back culturally far enough, or like ancestrally, we all come from the same place. We all come from the earth, and we're all like breathing, living humans that are doing our best to like make the most of this life. So that constant creation of division and pitting people against each other, for me it's like really the antithesis of Sufism. And even within religious Sufism, you can say with like the Khanqahs and the Naqshbandi versus Chishti, etc. There is some of that kind of like people will debate ideas and all that. But I think anybody that really understands tasawwuf to its like original point, it's any of that kind of debating and fighting over like different perspectives around spirituality is not what Sufism is meant to do. We're playing to like unite hearts, and like we're collectively, wow, this devotion, like you feel the audience, the band were like pulling people into a common field, not being like blah 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 is a blah blah, and like no blah blah. It's like a completely different thing. So it's hard for me as I guess a Qawwal or a Sufi in my own right to actually engage in that topic. It's almost like a baiting that happens that speaks a different language.
It's hard because you're in the world, and those kind of comments or feedback or questions come from people who are not even close to the surface of what music in general is. And I think things that are done, that we're doing, it's so beautiful to hopefully help people understand more about this music. Like you have the Summer School of Music, you know, you're teaching harmonium, tabla, Qawwali, and the whole Sufism world. And I think if people who, and it's obvious we have a conscious mind. We know when we approach a musician or an artist with something like that, we know that, you know, we're looking for either a response or a reaction. But I would just say to these people that try a little bit. Try the world first. You've got to know it. My rule in my own music in tabla was, I've never in my life said to anybody that you're a bad musician or you're good. You're good, but never to say you're bad, because I feel that until I can do what that person does, I shouldn't have the right to speak about, you know, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do. And I think it's just one of those where if I'm not able to do something or somebody does something different, it's like music is an expression of your emotions. How can you say your emotions are wrong? It doesn't make sense. If you're happy about something, I can't say you're wrong. It's not right. It's not authentic. Emotions are the most natural, pure, authentic thing that we have. And that is just what music is, a way of expressing. You know, I express my tabla, my feelings through my tabla. And those who connect will know how I'm feeling, what kind of a person I am. Do I innovate? Do I support? Am I just, you know, just a little cozy picture, whatever it is? You would know through my tabla, through my music, through my singing, what kind of a person I am. And that's what probably I would just say. It's just to carry on encouraging people to, before you mention anything about the music, or like you said, these people are taking our music. I mean, we came to this world empty, we're going to leave empty, so nothing is ours. Even what I have now is not mine. You know,
those blue jeans are cultural appropriation of my culture.
Are they?
Yeah, give me those jeans, man. They look nice.
They're too fitted for your culture. Baggy, fitted, mate.
These are more like Salvador.
Yeah. I'm the coconut here. But yeah, I just thought the Summer School of Music, I don't know, just shone for me when you mentioned, you know, people who would have an opinion about how we're doing things, what we're doing, is try the world first. Try it. You might actually find it's the best thing for you. Coming from a tabla player myself, I had my views on Qawwali, tabla playing. The minute I experienced the world, the dynamic, the way I look at this music has completely changed. And what it's allowed me to do is, I would like to say with a lot of blessing and God willing, successfully sit in a space like this with Qawwals, with people that I used to dream of meeting. And now I have the privilege of picking the phone up to them and having a chit chat with them, and learning so much about this music, and still learning. Learning happens every single day. Just on stage yesterday, made that little. Did you clock it when I did that little thing with the hammer?
What was going on there? It sounded very tuneful.
You didn't clock it. Did somebody clock it? The Maskalanda tune, the melody.
Yeah.
Was that from the Maskalanda melody? Actually?
Yeah. There you go. You learn, you innovate, and I would just encourage, very, very humbly, is try the world. If you haven't tried it, your opinion won't be valid. Validate their opinion. If you've tried it and it's the worst thing you've experienced, put it on there. But unless you try it and see what it is, you won't experience the glory of it.
Yeah. I also, to add to that point, I think what Tahir Bhai spoke about, which is like what we consider to be the purest form of Qawwali, like the original Qawwali. You know, like ultimately it's a personal preference. You know, like I know I share the same sentiment, and I love those old recordings. You know, that as Lali also alluded to, weren't even professionally recorded. And that's our personal preference. And I think a lot of people, the younger generation now, obviously are growing up in a generation which exposes them a lot more to, I guess, maybe more Western elements. Yeah. And I also understand why, I guess, young and upcoming Qawwals need to find a way to obviously make a living. And sometimes that means, where you're performing at wedding events and so on, where they have farmaishes that require, such instrumentation. But ultimately, my whole take on it is everyone has their personal opinion, but it's a different thing to go and share that, especially in a public platform. Like, some people love heavy metal, some people love jazz. It's a personal preference. But I just, for me, where I struggle with it is when you take that action to go and speak out on it, and that could be detrimental to someone's, to their inspiration. Like we often talk about energy, and I can speak, I think, on behalf of everyone here, in that we were uplifted by the environment we were in yesterday. Yes, we've had an incredible few days doing incredible riyāz, so I'd hope we'd perform better on the back of doing some heavy riyāz, but I think we were inspired by the energy we got from that audience, the love and the connection we had there. But on the other side of that, when you do get such comments and people who weigh in on something they really don't have the right to weigh in on, especially on a public platform, it just has that energy sucking effect, which is, it's not helpful to anyone.
Yeah, the truth is we've been given the blessing of so many great masters and teachers and people deeply immersed in the culture, and people that aren't in their motherland and don't have access to this beautiful part of their culture, something that's like such an integral part of their spiritual life, and that we might be the only thing to get to bring that to them, to represent that, to embody that, to create that atmosphere for them to get to experience their own culture, and how grateful the aunties and the uncles and even inspiring the next generation. Or so many times we play for younger generation that were like, oh, that's my parents' music. I didn't think it was cool, and I see you guys playing it, and now I'm like, maybe this is really cool music, and I'm gonna get into it because through us, that's like such an honor and such a different perspective as well. It's wild to think of how certain people, they just want to have something to say, or haters are gonna hate, or they just it's like a very new phenomenon too, because people don't have to approach you and look into your eyes and treat you like a human and talk to you like a human and get to interact. So to all the haters out there,
We love you.
Lovers gonna love.
Lovers gonna love.
Yeah, you need something to push against.
Yeah.
As with all of our stories, like you were saying, you had that antagonism from your family, almost that you had to kind of transcend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got trying to tackle with the world you play with, but when it's your own sort of network, your family, your friends, how do you tackle that? Because your family are your hero when you're a kid. You only want to do what they want to say. So it takes a great deal, and it did take a great deal of being on your own mission, your own journey, and I think just having faith and confidence and just doing it in the right, authentic way. I think then you feel and you see that bliss at the end of the tunnel. You see that light at the end of the tunnel, because I could have got there many different ways, or different ways of doing it, but I think just having that you know, I'm going to do it purely for me. This is not for anybody else. This is my journey. This is going to help me develop as a person, as an artist, as a musician, as a, you know, even academically. There's so much mathematics in this music. There's so much academia in what we do. But yeah.
It's not something you can just imitate.
No.
Or just fake it till you make it, or...
Can't fake it till you make it. I mean, you can when you buy Gucci pants.
I have another question too for you. Like, what are you most excited to bring in terms of like new vibes or carry forth into this like next quarter century of touring, as this is like a milestone year of touring? Like, what are you each most excited?
New chords.
What?
New chords.
New chords. I'm really excited to try Coke Cherry.
Seventh, ninth.
I've been drinking the original Coke for years.
I mean, I feel like Fanna-Fi-Allah is like a little bit its own entity that has just, I mean, obviously you're doing everything for Fanna-Fi-Allah, but it's also this thing that exists, and it's been, like, it started just prior to 9/11, for example, 25 years ago. It was like months before.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that happened, and it was like created this crazy rift in the world. And somehow Fanna-Fi-Allah was a bit of a bridge into the west, into the east, and into Pakistan specifically, and this kind of thing, and bringing that back to the US and to America with these changing mindsets that were happening, and it's a bunch of Americans and Goras going over there, and this whole experience. And also, like, I think in Pakistan at the time, like a lot of the youth being really into the American music too, and then bringing back, like, oh, these Americans are into what we're into.
Yeah.
But now times have changed also, and the world's gotten smaller, and there's a lot of, it's just interesting to see the group kind of shift a little bit, and now we have more like a mixed group, and how it's even bridging those worlds more now in some way, or like, as far as like the appropriation thing, like that wasn't so much a thing that people talked about 25 years ago. It wasn't really like a topic, and now it is. But like Fanna-Fi-Allah somehow, just through people deciding to leave the group or whatever things that have happened, and it's formed this new dynamic that is really like from everywhere. I mean, you guys are from New Zealand and Fiji, and like, it's been interesting, but it's also just more of a global blend of everybody together. It's I don't know, it's been sweet to see, and hopefully evolving into more of that and more accessible for more people, and hopefully breaking down these like ideas, like you're saying, this of appropriation and whatever, this kind of
Race
concept of,
and gender, kind of
race and
politics,
gender, all those kind of things, and just helping, like in some ways, I guess you giving us some legitimacy or something like that in some way, but people can't talk about that so much anymore, and because that's not what it's about, really. It's about going beyond that and becoming one, creating this sense of oneness,
And I think I totally agree, and I think certain cultures, in a way, are not easily approachable. And certain genres of music are not really accessible. Like, having obviously been in the Qawwali world for a while as well, I've been strongly exposed to, those sort of gatherings where men and women are not allowed to sit together, women are not allowed to do music. And I think one thing I've noticed as well is in Fanna-Fi-Allah concerts, it doesn't feel like a concert. It feels like we know everyone and we've sort of personally invited everybody. Like you'll find elderly people, you find babies, you'll find young people. I've bumped into schoolmates on Fanna-Fi-Allah shows, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And they're like, oh, we just heard that there are a bunch of Gauris that do Qawwali. And we're like, what, really? And they've always been amazed. And I think that's what I love. Like you said, it's just bringing worlds together. Music in general, a concert even, if it's very commercial, the principle is so the same. Just brings people in one space and you listen to the same thing.
I guess also now too is like, 25 years into it, it's not just, it's just the Gauri Qawwali thing, anymore. It's it's a mix also.
Oh, we paid our way in.
But because the music has evolved, so it's not just this like novelty thing of like, it's just the Gauri Qawwalis now. It's like, and you guys, help make that be a little bit more of a legitimate thing, or paint that picture that it's not just that anymore, but it's actually like this unified group of hearts and individuals doing this music, and it's evolved to that place where it's.
And I think also one thing, I don't know how technical anyone's ever observed our formation when we perform on stage, is that we don't follow the traditional sort of seat arrangement of where, the main singers sit in the front and chorus sit in the back and the tabla player sits in the back. Now, I'm sure there's a reason behind it. I'm sure there's some technical aspects to how they've positioned.
Well, bigger groups.
Well, bigger groups.
Bigger groups, smaller stage. You gotta pack them all.
Yeah. There you go, exactly. But what I've found in experience is sitting at the back is not the easiest way to focus on a singer's body language, especially when you've got to catch the sum. And you know how Qawwal singers, they'll chuck in a sum where the tabla player is not even ready for it. I've got to think 5 times before picking up the hammer and tuning my bass, because is there a sum being dropped anywhere? I can't even do that. And it's with the tabla player, from my perspective, this is obviously what I do, is I've always got to be on point. I've got to look at facial expressions, lip reading, eye contact, hand expressions. And I've always found that the tabla player in general has such a massive job. It's the heartbeat. Take your heart out of your human body, you're not alive. You won't survive. So it's like it's the main part of your body, and the tabla provides that rhythm, that heartbeat is the heartbeat of Qawwali. And when we're talking about just bridging worlds together, equality, we sit in a formation where no one's bigger and no one's smaller. We sit in a line, and we show that equality, even how we sit on stage. And that's just something that we also do on our side as well. Like you said, obviously, having band members from all over the world. So no one can just say, like I said, it's just a, Gora Qawwal or White Qawwal group.
That's
I just want to
perspective.
Just want to add one thing. I think since I've been blessed with doing Qawwali with groups, I think there's a reason why you need core singers at tabla and obviously the main singer because everybody relies off each other, because the tabla player would need the clap. The clap would follow the main singer. The main singer then would work with the tabla. So it's like a circle. That's my understanding of and having when we play on stage, it's I think everybody relies off each other. Like everybody's got their job, like you got in a corporate company, you got the CEO, then you have other positions, right? And
CFO,
yeah. and I think that's why it's a Qawwali, it's not like a solo performance, right, with instruments. I think that's why like Ustads used to have like big groups and that's the reason they all work together, and it's a beautiful structure, I think.
I think also, in terms of what we're working towards as a collective, I think this trip to Bali is indicative of where we're headed. Taking time out to not only practice and upskill, but also, I guess, exploring those composition that are outside of our comfort zone, you know. Taking on the shorter qawwalis that may not necessarily be our favorite to listen to, but in many ways, like I often think back to, you know, how my friends and family got into qawwali in the first place. And I think of a couple of albums, and that was like Love Song, you know. I always think back, and I think they were obviously condensed, like bridge versions of what was ultimately showcased, but it was enough to draw them in. Like, oh, okay, this is what it's all about. And then they'll listen to those 30, 45-minute, 60-minute versions, you know. But I think what I've really learned over the last year is that we're really heading in this new direction, which is to get away from that novelty act status and really upskill. And you know, I think we've got an abundance of resources, and we've got really great people around us, and I think we've got the support of a really amazing fan base. So I think the sky is the limit. You know, it's just as much as we put into it going forward.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, because I guess the amount of how much I think about the diversity in a group is not quite the main feature. It's kind of it's what emerges from the deeper root intention, which is basically to make the most harmonious and high quality international qawwali ensemble that I can, really. And sometimes that means you know, inconveniently hiring people from other countries, that it's more expensive and this and that. But it's, I think, to carry this music requires a really profound character as well. It's not just like a cut and dry ability thing. It's not like an assembly line of qawwals. So being the one that's in the driver's seat with the hiring and firing and all that, for me it's always been that consideration of who wants to bring their heart into it, and who is really ready to offer that, and who wants to collaborate and be a good people person and be able to share their character and their good energy with the group and add that to our unique khichdi. And I love that we've had so much diversity, and it's great. And I think skill and musical talent and experience are really essential in the process of what we want to create in the future. And I think naturally, as our language skills, inshallah, improve, you know, it's really nice to have Rohit now. He's got good awareness of Punjabi and this kind of thing. It's really helpful. And for example, Chetan Bhai is like a master of so many instruments. Like every time I see one of your viewers, he's like, "Oh, you're playing bass now. You're playing drum kit now." Like, how do you do those things? So like a really profound and broad awareness of music and the quality of it. And then of course, Kashbai has been with us a while now. He's pretty much like a pea in the pod, but it's like you brought like this really very perfected element of qawwali tabla playing. I mean, obviously you do all the things really well, and it inspires us and makes us feel like the standard has been brought higher in the group, which is really important. But that you, like you said about Dildar Sahab being like somebody that does his job really well with a lot of like reverence and focus, like that inspires us to do our job in that way. When you bring that kind of well-mannered, like I'm going to come and do my job very well every time, that's been very essential. And I guess naturally we kind of shed that from our group. Like it's hard to see some of our iconic members, you know, leave the group. It's a hard process. And I think about it at night sometimes and lament and, you know, miss the moments we've had, you know, with Arjun Baba and with Amna Chishti and with Pascal Suraj and, you know, people we've traveled the world with and been through a lot with. So I don't say it, you know, without a really profound, you know, sadness and, you know, broken-hearted feeling, but I think it's natural to shed those elements that aren't quite serving that deeper purpose of really wanting to bring this music to the world at a level that our masters taught us. I feel like I have to, because one of the symptoms of being a shagird of a great ustad is like you can't settle for any mediocrity. You can't be like, I'm representing Ustad Sher Ali Khan, and have people in the group that don't really want to be there, or decided they wanted to do something different instead of practicing on the tour, and didn't really want to learn the words or the melody or the harmonium, and it just didn't feel like it carried the reverence of the lineage. So for me, I guess that just has always been kind of the main precedent to set. And when diversity comes into it, it's really fun. It's great to to feel like when we go to London that you have like contacts and connections, and you know, and the same kind of thing, like we were sharing each other's cultures and worlds with one another on the journey as well. It's not like we're a whole bunch of people from California like going out into the world, you know. When we go to Montreal, it's like your world, and when we go to Hawaii in 2045, inshallah, it's going to be like your people and your community. And when we were in Australia a couple of years ago, and yeah, it's a beautiful experience to feel that we can create these kind of bridges and links all over the world, musically, but also culturally, and make these relationships. As Chetan Bhai said, we have a huge body of fans and friends that have seen us now for 25 years, you know, a quarter century, and love us to bits and support us. And it really for us, and I guess me as the leader, to really up that standard every year, so that when they come to their once a year show, and whether it's San Francisco or Timbuktu, to see Fanna-Fi-Allah, they know it's going to be something better and unique, and it's going to be we're going to up level both musically and creatively, and offer something special. I'm sure they'd come too if we just played Chap Tilak the whole time, but I think as an audience member, I acknowledge their need to like watch us evolve and be part of that journey with us. So I feel devoted to that. And also just sustainably wise, as a large group traveling from many parts of the world, it's so expensive now. So the idea for the future is that we play these really revered concert halls. You know, a lot of them are concert played. It's an honor. And if we're going to do that and be able to cover the cost of being a group of this size and all these princesses, I think we shed the princesses already, but if we're going to be that size of group, you know, with that standard of the best that we can bring to this tradition, you know, we want to play in a venue that can support that. And if we're going to put all this energy to travel and practice to be at a venue like these ones we're playing on this tour, we really want to come with our best, you know. Yeah. I wouldn't feel right about us all flying so far and putting so much energy and time to go and do a mediocre performance. So I think that's the precedent that we're setting, and being a little more strict with it, the better that we get. Yeah.
Yeah, there's gotta be a level of like excitement and devotion and like service and sacrifice even, because what we do is not easy, you know. It's some very rigorous schedules, and also if we didn't all enjoy each other's company and be able to crack jokes and laugh and just
a lot of good laughs.
Enjoy our time together.
Sometimes when I'm not on tour, I'm like, why haven't I laughed as much this week? Oh yeah, I'm not on tour. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's not around. That's why.
There's something really, yeah, it's so deep in bonding with what we go through together, you know, and get to bring a lot of people alive and get to support each other musically. And
it's often those like weird and unexpected experiences that is like the food, the fuel for the humor too. Definitely. If you're just at home and like going to the shop and whatever else, you don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the little inside jokes, and yeah, just I feel that like this next cycle, this next stage that we're in is really exciting about, you know, learning more, always striving to get better, to go deeper, to try to push harder, to do something new, do something
to hear a little more precisely.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm looking forward to this year, every year since the beginning. You know, it was never necessarily about how much this is gonna enrich my life monetarily or make me famous or any of that. It's just like really the joy that comes from getting to sit down together and do something that we can't do as individuals, and even to just do it in certain settings doesn't feed you the same way as getting to sit down in these really beautiful stages and these beautiful spaces, and people coming sometimes from all over the world too to get to come and see us and receive us, and it's a real honor and a privilege, and yeah, I'm very much enthusiastic about what's to come. We never really know. It's all kind of a mystery, and what blessings will come, you know, with our prayers and our devotion and our endurance on this path. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, thank you all again. Thanks for sitting here, and thanks to all of our viewers that love us enough to listen to this whole interview that we kind of free range through a little bit, to wanting to give us, you know, wanting to give you all a little bit of taste of what we think about and what we talk about, not just the music, but the humans behind it, and giving our love also to Abrar Hussain, that's not here with us in Bali, but he'll be on tour, and Aziz Darvesh and all the crew. So thank you for watching and listening. We appreciate it, and big gratitude to this whole group for carrying this music together as a family, as an ensemble. Inshallah, we'll see you along the journey. Khuda Hafiz.